Oh, this week, I think that we have hit a real watershed moment in at least the U.S. relationship with the Netanyahu regime in Israel. It's interesting to see how it has happened. So this week, unless you've been living under a rock, if you follow this show, I'm sure you're aware of this, but Israel struck a WKC, WCK, a World Central Kitchen convoy in Gaza and killed 7 aid workers. Now, and when I say they struck it, I don't mean that like a bomb exploded in the area and accidentally hit this convoy. This convoy was targeted with precision munitions multiple times to the point where people were like switching cars and it was still getting hit. And the essentially it has just everyone is now against it. Like, it's really weird how quickly this has turned the tides. Like, of all of the aid workers that have been killed, all of the teachers, all of the volunteers, all of the journalists that have been killed over the last several months haven't moved the needle enough, but this one did. And I think a lot of it is because of the guy that ran the World Central Kitchen, whose name is completely not on my screen right now, and it really should be, but he's a chef in DC, and it will totally come through my screen here. Do you guys remember the name, TJ? Do you remember
I don't remember his name, no.
But he's a chef, a Michelin star chef in Washington, DC. So he's very well connected in political circles, and I think that is what and he has been relatively pro-Israel. And when these guys, Israel killed his guys, he was like, guys, this no, that's not it. I'll find the name. But he was essentially like, no, this is like, they targeted our convoy. Like, this is obviously so clearly wrong. And you have the pictures of just the convoy truck with a hole in the roof. Like, this could not have been accidental. It's like straight through the logo, clearly marking it as humanitarian vehicle. And I guess it's just so close to home in Washington, D.C., that like it is turning politicians that otherwise wouldn't have been turned. But Gigi, what did you think when you read this story? Do you feel like this is actually a needle mover that's going to affect change? What are your thoughts?
I think that it will bring much more attention to Netanyahu's craziness in all of his decision making. The name is, I'm looking it up right now, it's Chef Jose Andres, is that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is shedding light toward like how much this has been going on already, because at least 196 humanitarian workers have been killed since October. So of course I think that this at least puts a name and a face to these people who are being killed, and I think that it will be beneficial to a ceasefire or something like that, like to at least have someone to connect these killings to. And I do think so. I think that it will help at least. Of course, it's horrible that this is this is what it takes in order to get people's attention. And the fact that, so much of this has been going just sort of like no one really cares. No one really like looks into this, Yeah, I do think that it will be helpful.
Yeah. I was trying to find the tweet that Biden made about this, and I just had it in front of me. But he says that I am outraged and heartbroken by the deaths of 7 humanitarian workers from World Central Kitchen, including 1 American in Gaza yesterday. Incidents like yesterday simply should not happen. And then he provides a full statement, which I'll address a little bit. But the first thing I want to mention is this thing that we see a lot when it comes to like you'll see this with police shootings where 14-year-old black child killed in officer involved shooting, and not saying who killed them. It's like, oh, these people died around the vicinity of Israel and shit like that. That's always pretty annoying. And also, this is something that gets my attention, and I think KC, what did she say here? I think it kind of relates. Yet most white people don't tend to get outraged when POC are harmed, but when it's charities or white people. Yeah. So, well, I would.
It is incredible how stark the contrast is with that one on this.
Well, the corollary I want to add to that is it's not just on racial or ethnic lines, it's on nationality lines. Because how many times have you seen a news story where it's like, earthquake strikes in Indonesia and 80 people killed, including 3 Americans. And you're like, oh my God, 3 Americans died. And you care about it now. Like, you care about it a lot more than if it would have been 3 foreigners that you wouldn't know. And so for some reason that works. And it's kind of fucked up that we don't value human life equally. We value lives that happen to be born or naturalized within the imaginary lines that we, were born and naturalized in. Is kind of crazy. And Biden said something here where he says Israel has to do better to try to protect these aid workers, because I didn't know this until this happened, but I forget the number of aid workers that have been killed in this conflict, the euphemism, this conflict that's going on. But it's disproportionately higher than any conflict that's happened in recent history. And so it's not that Israel isn't protecting these folks. Israel is killing these folks. And Israel is, making it very clear that they don't want aid going into Gaza. They will set up blockades, like Israeli civilians set up blockades to stop food from going into Gaza, or, any type of humanitarian aid whatsoever. And so it's like, no, Israel isn't just like, oh, whoopsie, this is a passive mistake we had where, someone had to die. I can't prove that was a targeted strike, even though it looks exactly like a targeted strike. I can't prove that, but it would, fall in line with everything Israel has done so far, in that, we want to stop this aid. You remember, how many times does this have to happen? Like, remember the story where they did a missile strike on 2 ambulances that had like the Red Cross on them. And then you had just a couple of weeks ago, you had that 6-year-old girl whose family was killed in a strike. She was the only one left. And then the paramedics showed up. They killed the paramedics and the 6-year-old girl. At some point, either you're doing this on purpose, or you were the most incompetent military on planet Earth. Like those are the only 2 options, and I think I know which one it is. Like, that's just kind of how I'm leaning on this.
Well, it's not even. So there was another report that came out today. So there's so much. This story has so much in it, and we're saving the segment about what Iran's involvement here for our next video. So stay tuned later this week for that. But another story came out today from the 972 magazine, which is an independent journalist organization operating out of Israel and Palestine. And it's about how they had several, I think it was 6 sources who were Israeli intelligence officers who anonymously came forward to speak out because they saw what was happening. They're using this statistical AI model to determine their targets. And what is happening by doing this is Israel basically said they were using this model before in the conflict, and they used to say, hey, there has to be a human overseeing all of the decisions made from this. And what these Israeli intelligence officers are coming forward and saying is, not only did they get rid of that requirement, the only oversight on these targets, according to these whistleblowers that have come forward, is that they check to see if the person they're targeting is a man. And they listen to the phone calls they recorded from them. If it sounds like a dude, they're dead. And not only that, but they are killing them purposefully when they are at home, because they have a higher likelihood of actually hitting the target. Now, of course, by doing that, you are essentially condemning their family and children to death. And they have increased the amount of acceptable casualties to 15 people at times for low-level militants, and 100 people, over 100 people for high-level senior targets. And that is the reason why you're seeing so many more civilians and women and children being killed, and aid workers and everything, is because they're just having the AI tell them where to shoot, and they're shooting, and there's no oversight. And so, yeah, it seems obvious to us, like, oh yeah, obviously we see the Red Cross, we see the humanitarian aid logo on top of the car. Why didn't they see that and just not drop the bomb? And it's because they're not the ones that, like, there's an AI making these decisions, and that is what is happening. And they know that this AI has a 10% fuck up rate. They know that 10% of the time the AI is just going to be wrong by their estimates, and they're hitting that button anyway. And it is one of the most damning things. Like this whole crockpot is about to boil over, because the more this stuff that comes out and gets made public, and the more that, like, you have Joe Biden even today, like I know we crap on Joe Biden all the time, and the way he's handled this has been absolutely atrocious. But he made the most damning statements I've heard him make so far today. The statement he released yesterday was kind of another nothing burger. But in this one, the statement he made today, he said, nope, that's not it. I need a better organization of my quotes, TJ.
Same.
Yeah, here it goes. He said that President Biden called for an immediate ceasefire, and he said that future U.S. policy will be determined by our assessment of Israel's immediate action. So that is about as damning, about as close to a president calling for conditional aid to Israel that we've ever heard in our lifetimes, and it would be pretty big if he sticks to that. Well, that remains to be seen, but I do think the tides are turning here.
Mm-hmm.
I said a lot there. I'm sorry for just info dumping. There's just so much. There's so much with this story.
No, there is. And I have a lot to say too. So Gigi, if you want to hop in, I guess I got a lot written down here, but you want to go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I think it's super problematic that they're using AI, especially with such little human like supervision over it. And just like, it comes off as reckless, like completely reckless, and not at all caring about who's targeted and why. And that's a common theme we see with like Netanyahu and his decisions, and just sheer power, and like unchecked, like, so that's kind of my thought on that with the AI thing, just how little power we sort of have over it at this point, and how like using that for something so insane, like so sinister, is reckless.
Yeah. I wanted to add on to something John said about how Biden's pushed for a ceasefire, because that was part of the statement that he issued today, and he is, but it's I don't know.
It's not good enough. He should have called for. He should be saying right now, end it, goodbye. But
I don't feel comfortable with the language, because what he said was the United States will continue to do all we can to deliver humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians in Gaza through all available means. I will continue to press Israel to do more to facilitate that aid, and we are pushing hard for an immediate ceasefire as part of a hostage deal. I have a team in Cairo working on this right now. So what the hostage deal is Gaza surrenders, the Israelis that they have hostage, but Israel doesn't. Like that's the hostage deal that they have. It's like, okay, that's not a deal right there. You're clearly siding with one over the other. And with the AI thing, so I want to pull up Mio Martinez here. Pretty callous way of waging war. Martinez is an individual with whom I'm well acquainted. We were in the military together, and he'll know this, that it's insane to me that Israel is doing this. We'll let Agent Smith decide who gets bombed. We'll just let a machine do this, because that is not how it works. And so say all you want about the flaws of the United States military, that is not how it works. If you want to, launch a missile attack, it goes through your tactical assistant, your tactical director. It goes up to your battle captain. Then it goes up to to the battalion level. Then it goes up to a DAFCO, which is like big army level. You have to get so many clears and go aheads before you do something like that. And they're just doing it Yeah, the machine says do it, so it does it. Like that's wild that shit happens. And there was an incident back in 1988, I believe, and the United States Navy had a ship out in the Red Sea, I think, and they they accidentally shot down an Iranian passenger plane, like full of civilians. Like the Navy just blew it out of the sky. It killed like 250 people. And as you can imagine, the Iranians were not too happy about this, with the fact that happened. And this was 88, and Reagan was still president at the time, but his brain was cottage cheese at this point, you know. And so you know,
at that point, when did it stop?
Right, yeah, years before that. So he couldn't be bothered to make a statement on this, and so Vice President at the time, George Bush Sr., was speaking about it, and they asked him, "Hey, do you think we owe the Iranians apology for our Navy destroying a commercial airline?" And his exact words were, "I will never apologize for the United States of America." So that's I mean, he said it out loud in front of everybody. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's easy for us to throw stones on this, but Israel is like worse than we've ever done, and it's just really, really sad to see.
And speaking of accidentally hitting an important Iranian target, Israel also did that this week. They hit an Israeli consulate in Damascus, and we'll be talking about that on tomorrow's episode. So if you want to hear about that, well, it gets even wilder. So make sure to like and subscribe, and listen to me right now tell you to like and subscribe again.
We want to hit some of these comments here. I would ignore those, but in religious lines, but the fact that American Christians weren't outraged about Jesus' birthplace was targeted just shows that they care more about skin color than belief. So actually, all three of us grew up religious, so we can talk about this in depth. That the reason that, for those of you who don't know, the reason that you have American evangelical Christians or just like rock hard about this shit is that they've been taught from the day they could walk that the end times are just around the corner, and that every time there's a conflict, hell, not even a conflict in the Middle East, just any major conflict anywhere, they all run around saying, these are the end times. These are the last days. This is Jesus is coming any day now. And the Battle of Armageddon takes place in the Holy Land, and it's going to be bloodshed. All the Jews are going to die, except 144,000 of them that are saved. And like the red heifer will be sacrificed. You have the abomination of desecration, and they're just the Antichrist will rise. Like whenever they see this stuff, they think, oh, this is good. This is a signal that the rapture is going to come and everything's going to be taken care of. And it's actually one of the reasons, or one of the primary reasons, that President Bush, George W. Bush, was so, gung ho about the Iraq war. He met with the Prime Minister of France, Jacques Chirac, and Jacques Chirac said, look, man, I'm looking at what you're presenting for me, and I don't think this is a good idea. You're not convincing me. And he looked this man straight in the eye and said, no, it's really important we do this because I believe the demons of Gog and Magog are on the move and we need to stop them because that's like a biblical prophecy. Like they take this shit really seriously, and they don't care how many people have to die to fulfill this, this exigent and greedy desire for the destruction of planet Earth. And it's nothing to fuck around with, but it explains why this clearly immoral shit's going on, and a lot of people support it.
Mm-hmm.
And unrelated, but Jacques Chirac, all-time world leader name, one of the best ever. like Jacques Chirac, like I'll follow that guy. I have no idea what his politics are, but I'll follow him to the gates of hell. Jacques Chirac.
And we got.
Did you have something to add there on the
religiosity? I could go on for a long time about that. Honestly, like it's really just they want the stars to align a certain way because they want the end of the world. They want it, and it's bonkers, obviously, but it's yeah, what we're up against in terms of like critical thought, in terms of like empathy for human beings in the here and now, like that's just not on the radar for like evangelical Christians whatsoever. It's all about the end times and certain things need to happen, in Israel and this and that and the other thing. Like, so they will just mindlessly support and they'll mindlessly just, this is what needs to happen.
In
So
fact, it's kind of their fault that we're in this predicament to begin with, because those of you who are deep into biblical eschatology, you'll know that one thing that they say a lot is the catalyst for the end times was the creation of the state of Israel, because in the book of Revelation, they reference Israel as being a country, and Israel was not a country, and so they're like, oh my God, we can make Israel a country, and that will bring about the end times. Like, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy right there.